Hello, welcome to another exciting screencast about the heart, the functional anatomy of the heart. This is the second one of two. And by the end of this, hopefully you'll be able to identify and describe the chambers, the great vessels, and the valves of the heart. And then describing blood flow actually through the heart, so involving the chambers, the great vessels, and all those valves. And then we will review here the flow through the pulmonary circuit as well as through the systemic circuit. All right, so here we go. We had talked about the heart being the pump of the cardiovascular system, being the cardio part of the cardiovascular system, and then the vascular part is the blood vessels. Okay, so the last time we looked at the pulmonary circuit, and we said that the right side of the heart pumps blood from the right side into this pulmonary circuit and then back to the left side. Then the left side of the heart pumps blood from it into the systemic circuit, which is all up to the head, down the arms, down the legs, and then returns that blood back to the right side of the heart. So we're now going to focus on this heart, the structure of it. So if we look at the heart from an anterior view, this would be as it's sitting in the chest, so anteriorly. There's obviously a lot of identifications here. So I want to focus first on the chambers, right? So there are 4 chambers of the heart. There are 2 receiving chambers, and then there are 2 pumping chambers, right? So let's see if I can do this here. So let's highlight in yellow here the chambers. So there is a right atrium, and then there is a left atrium. So these are both receiving chambers, so blood will be returning to the heart into the right atrium and into the left atrium. Then the pumping chambers are the 2 ventricles, and there is a right ventricle and a left ventricle. Right? So these are the two chambers are going to, when the myocardium in those contracts, squeezes blood out into the pulmonary circuit or the systemic circuit, right and left there. So these are what the chambers look like on the anterior view. On the posterior view, so this is the back side of the heart, which is not often seen. You don't see very many diagrams of the posterior view, but let's just take a look here. So here's the left atrium. This is a receiving chamber. And then here's what the right atrium looks like, again, from the back side. Now, since this is a posterior view, the left atrium here is on the left side of the diagram, and the right atrium is on the right side of the diagram. And then the left ventricle is down here, and the right ventricle is then right over here. So this left ventricle and the right ventricle posteriorly. Let's go back to the anterior view here, and let's look at the great vessels that are bringing blood to the heart, and then the vessels that are taking blood away from the heart. So let's change the ink color here. Let's make the green ones, or this whatever color this is here, I guess it's kind of green, for the great vessels that are going to be returning blood to the heart. So we have the superior vena cava is returning blood to the heart, as well as the inferior vena cava. So these are returning blood to the right side of the heart. And then the blood vessels that are returning blood to the left side of the heart are the left pulmonary veins, right, and the right pulmonary veins. Right? So again, this green is highlighting blood vessels that are bringing blood back to the heart. Right? So the left pulmonary veins bring it to the left atrium, and the superior and inferior vena cava bring it to the right atrium. So let's switch colors again then and look at the chambers that are, we'll do these in orange here. The chambers that are, or sorry, not the chambers, the blood vessels, the great vessels that are bringing blood away from the heart. So from the right side of the heart, you have this pulmonary trunk, right? And again, blood is going to be traveling away from the heart in the pulmonary trunk, and then also in the left pulmonary artery, as well as the right pulmonary artery. Right? So this is the first time that we've encountered this term artery and vein. So an artery, by definition, takes blood away from the heart, artery away. So pulmonary arteries take blood away from the heart into the pulmonary circuit. So the name of them describes where that blood is going. And then veins take blood to the heart. So this is the definition of a vein. So veins return blood to the heart. So you have the left and right pulmonary veins returning that from the pulmonary circuit. The inferior and superior vena cava are special veins, and they have special names. You know that they're special because they have different names. They're not called veins, they're called vena cava. And so again, they are veins because they're returning blood to the heart. Okay? So back to blood vessels that are taking blood away from the heart. Those are the right and left pulmonary arteries from the right side of the heart. And then you have the largest artery in the body, the ascending aorta, and then it arches over to form this aortic arch. And then as it would go down behind the heart, you would have then the descending aorta. So the aorta is the largest blood vessel in the body. It's the largest artery in the body, and it is taking blood away from the heart from the left side into the systemic circuit. Okay? So those are the great vessels. Let's look at that posterior view here, and I would encourage you to take a second and look at these here. So I think we're on the artery colors here. So here's the left pulmonary artery, right, taking blood into the left pulmonary circuit. Here's the right pulmonary artery. So these are away from the heart. Here's the aorta up here, taking blood out of the left side of the heart. The pulmonary veins then, so we'll switch colors, and I think I had that as green. This green color here. So left pulmonary veins bringing blood back to the heart from the left lung, and the right pulmonary veins bringing blood back to the heart from the right lung. And then you have the inferior vena cava and the superior vena cava here that are going to return blood to the right atrium from the systemic circuit. Okay. Now, if we go back to this anterior view here for a minute, I want to change back to the pen. And these other structures that are on here are arteries that are going to either be serving the heart or arteries that are going to be taking blood up to the head off that aortic arch there. Right? So if you look at this brachiocephalic artery here, the left common carotid, the left subclavian, these are all on your yellow sheet. These are arteries that you need to know for later on. This right coronary artery here, I don't know why that's not writing, staying on there like that. So the right coronary artery, let's change color maybe. So the right coronary, oh, there we go, the right coronary artery. These coronary arteries are special arteries that are taking blood to the myocardium, and these are part of that special circulation that's on there. And the circumflex artery is part of that special circulation of the heart. Left coronary artery, special circulation, right? Cardiac veins, special circulation that you have to know. Anterior interventricular artery, again, is part of that special circulation. This marginal artery, special circulation. Again, so all these things that I'm highlighting here in purple, right, or underlining in purple, are part of the special circulation that's bringing oxygenated blood to the heart muscle tissue itself. Okay. So the last thing I want to point out here that has to do with another one of those special circulations is this ligamentum arteriosum here. And this ligamentum arteriosum is left over from when we were fetuses, and our blood was not going to our lungs to be oxygenated. Right? So when you look at the fetal circulation, that special circulation, that ligamentum arteriosum will become apparent to you. All right. So again, the posterior side, going back to purple. Going back to purple. So these cardiac veins, right here, the coronary sinus is part of that special cardiac circulation there on the posterior side, middle cardiac vein here, posterior interventricular artery, right? The small cardiac vein, this is all part of that special circulation there, right coronary artery. So this can get confusing, I'll warn you, right, is that again, these things in purple are not the great vessels of the heart. The things in purple are part of a special circulation that's bringing oxygenated blood to the heart muscle tissue itself, not part of like the blood flow through the heart. Okay. but the things in orange and green and yellow are involved in the blood flow through the heart. So if we take a section through the heart now, right, we make a coronal or a frontal section here, what we see is are the chambers inside. And we have sheep hearts in class that I would encourage you highly muchly to make a coronal section through. We'll section them. Some of them are already sectioned, but we'll section them from the apex up toward the base. Right? And when we open this, now we're able to see the valves in here that are going to control the one-way flow. Right? So the valves in this heart will control the one-way flow through. So let's just orient ourselves a second. The left side of this diagram, this is an anterior view, so the left side of the diagram is the right side of the heart. The right side of the diagram is the left side of the heart. So this is right atrium here. This is left atrium here. This is going to be the right ventricle over here. This is going to be the left ventricle in here. Again, these are the chambers. You would see these lined with endocardium here. You'll see the pericardium on the outside of that heart, and you'll see some fat there as well when you dissect it. Again, then this would all be the myocardium, the muscle right there. These little things right here are known as papillary muscles. And I'm not sure that that is identified anywhere, so I'll just go ahead and drop a line down. And so you'll be able to see these when you open up the heart, when you section that heart. So papillary muscle, extension of the myocardium, and they are attached to these chordae tendineae that are then attached to the flaps of the valves. Right? So the valves that are between the atria and the ventricles are known as atrioventricular valves. Right? It's descriptive, atrioventricular valves. And the one on the right has a special name. It's called the tricuspid valve because there are 3 cusps or 3 flaps to it. Right? The AV valve on the left side is the left atrioventricular valve. Right? Right here, the left atrioventricular valve, also sometimes known as the bicuspid valve, but it has an even more special name. It's mostly always referred to as the mitral valve, and we'll get to that in just a second. So those are the 2 AV valves, right? Highlighted in black there, or underlined in black. And let's then just switch color, and we'll underline in red the 2 semilunar valves. There's a semilunar valve on the right side, which is the pulmonary semilunar valve. So this controls blood flow from the right ventricle into the pulmonary trunk and then into the pulmonary arteries. So that's the pulmonary semilunar valve. Semilunar, half moons. So there are 3 cusps here, and you can see that sort of basically roughly they look like a half moon shape there. Yeah. Then there is an aortic semilunar valve sort of tucked up into here. The aortic semilunar valve controls blood flow from the left ventricle into the aorta. These valves are one-way valves, so blood will flow only in one direction. Right? I'll link these animations on Blackboard for you to sort of take a look at all that as well. Okay. So there's a diagram of the blood flow and the valves. So when the valves are open here, blood flows through. When the valve closes, the valves close because the ventricles will contract. Oh, that was the problem. The ventricles will contract, and the blood gets pushed back up in here and into the cusp, and it causes those flaps to then close. So these closing of these valves, they slam shut, and actually is what makes the heart sounds. Right? So click on that, and you can take a listen. Look at this diagram right here. So again, as the blood flows in this direction, the valves open, and when blood is pulled back this way because there's negative pressure there, it's going to pull that valve, and that's going to slam shut then. So this mitral valve, this is Pope Francis. Those of you that don't know, he's the Pope, and he wears this hat, and this hat is called a mitre. Right? And sometimes you can fold napkins into a napkin, into a mitre fold here. And this has an opening right here, right? It's open on his head there. So here's the mitre, and there's the opening there. And this valve is known as the mitral valve because it has 2 flaps, right, as compared to the tricuspid valve. So it reminded some early anatomists of a Pope's mitre for some reason, just upside down, where the blood would flow this way. So that's actually why it's called the mitral valve. Right? Fun fact. Right, so now let's finish this up and wrap this all up. So now you should be able to start right here in the right ventricle and be able to list the valves, the great vessels, and the blood vessels, then the circuit, and all the chambers, right? For example, if you started in the right ventricle, blood would then move through the pulmonary semilunar valve, right, into the pulmonary trunk, then into the pulmonary arteries, and then from the pulmonary arteries it would move into the pulmonary capillaries, then into the pulmonary veins, and then those pulmonary veins bring that blood back into the left atrium. Right? And so I think that you'll find that if you just continue this on, right, so what's the next initial and the next initials and the next one and the next one and the next one, you'll eventually end up all the way back up here at right ventricle where you started, right? So I would like you to practice that. We have that to work on in class as well. Okay? So this is what the sheep hearts look like, right? And again, this is going to, the left side here, this would be an anterior view, right? Where this would be the apex, and then this is the base, right? And so again, the real thing does not look a whole heck of a lot like the cartoon does, but knowing the cartoon helps you know what the heart is. What helps you with the actual anatomy. So this is an anterior view. Here's a posterior view of that heart. All this yellow stuff here is going to be fat. This is the actual myocardium, the darker colored stuff there. And this membrane is sort of peeled away right there. That's the part of that visceral pericardium. And I made a little slash in here into the that right atrium. Okay, so grab a heart, take a look. We have models. We have actual things to take a look at there. So, all right, now you should be able to identify and describe the great vessels, the chambers, and the valves of a heart, and then be able to describe the blood flow through the heart, which includes the chambers, the great vessels, and the valves, as well as then describing blood flow through the pulmonary circuit as well as the systemic circuit. Okay? Thanks for listening. That was a little bit long, but bring your questions to class. Okay.